Before we start, I would like to introduce myself, guys. My name is Megha Bansali. I'm a qualified ACCA and I'm an Indian CA. And I have been teaching for about 5 years now, just ACCA. And to be specific, with regard to SBR, probably since last 2 years, I have done SBR every attempt. So probably 8 times something is what I have done SBR. So now it's more like, on my fingertips. A lot of things which I feel students make mistakes, a lot of corrections can be done. So I'm just kind of going to give those tips to you so that you don't make those mistakes in your examination. And also, the purpose for today's session is to understand from others mistakes and not to repeat that. Okay, that's what the entire examiner's report is about. Now, solving all your queries. If you're finding syllabus to be too vast, you're not able to cover the syllabus, my suggestion would be to understand the examination weightage. Okay, so first and foremost, your section A comprises of consolidation and ethics. Now, sometimes you might find consolidation to be very tricky because I think mainly because of the Excel linking. If you're finding that to be a very tricky part, then I would say leave the consolidation, focus on the rest first. Okay, do that first, so that you're at least confident of the 70% of the syllabus. Then you move on to consolidation. That could be one way. Second way could be, no, I know consolidation ethics comes for 50 marks, I will perfect this. Out of this 50, I will score 30 definitely in my exam. So focus on that. If you're focusing on consolidation ethics, then your next high weightage or topics are typically your financial instruments. They come every attempt. Assets, which include non-current assets, intangible assets, impairment, research and development. All these topics, one question definitely comes every attempt. Do these topics really well. Then you have your leases, taxation, revenue. These three topics would probably be your next category of importance. So you do them based on the weightage if you're finding syllabus to be too huge. However, consolidation ethics is something that you should focus on. Ethics, I would say, please do it really well because it comes for solid 20 marks. So if syllabus is the problem, please focus on high weightage topic, and probably that's how we could go about it because we have lesser time. Now, for people who are finding questions very difficult to answer, okay, the key is, guys, to read. Okay, you have to read as many times you can a single question. Please read a question again and again to break it down into smaller topics, smaller concepts. Don't try and read the entire question at once. Okay, please don't do that. So, see, like if this is a question, okay, this is one big 50 marker question, but when you move to your requirement, okay, the requirement are very specific. This relates only to exhibit 1, this relates only to exhibit 2, and this is talking about the pre-populated Excel. So please break down your questions in smaller chunks, because it is not that all the questions will be of the same topic. Probably you know the answer of exhibit 2, you don't know of exhibit 1. But when you read all of this together, you find it too confusing. Please break it down into different chunks and then try and solve your question. Reading the question, giving it a good reading will kind of help you to break down your questions. To feel confident about questions could be, note down the different types of questions that are there. To give you an example, probably in case of assets, okay, there could be questions on impairment of cash generating unit. There could be questions on your IFRS 5, which is non-current asset held for sale. And then in that also, one could be conditional based, one could be, should this classification still continue, one could be a calculative question. So you can also make a list of the different kind of questions that are there, and if you will see, repetitively similar types of questions are asked. Okay, so that could also make your question understanding a little more simple. So you could probably try that, and the best way is to practice, guys. The more you practice, the better you're going to get in understanding the question and in solving the question. Now, moving on to consolidation. If you are finding consolidation difficult, my suggestion is, guys, first you do the workings. Okay, do your entire working notes first. Post that, you start your Excel linking. Don't jump onto the whole question at once. Do all your workings, pass journal entries. When you pass journal entries, you will be able to answer your question in a very, very systematic and in a better way. So that's one trick for your consolidation. If you're finding the standards to be very difficult, my suggestion is you make flowcharts, make some kind of short notes wherein you comprise a standard in one single page. It should not be more than that, so it gets easy to revise and to remember. And if one particular standard or three, four particular standards are very difficult, make some flowchart, make some kind of nice notes which is concise, stick it onto your study board so that you can see it repetitively. Another best way to remember things is, you could probably record it. You could do a voice note of it. You could play it when you are probably going to your office, going to college, or whatever. Whenever you are free, you could listen to it. So when you are listening to it some 4 5 times, it makes it better to retain. So these are some hacks which I've personally used in my CA journey, in my ACCA journey, which can kind of help you in your exam. Okay, so let's start with analyzing the examiner's report. Now, how many of you have gone through the examiner's report? I'm discussing the June and the March 2014 2024's examiner's report. Has anyone gone through this before? Now, see, guys, understand the examiner's report is a accumulation of how students have answered the examination and what was expected, what was right, and what was wrong. Okay, that's what your examiner's report is kind of summarizing. So, the key learning from this report should be how the question was structured, what was the question asking, and how do I go about answering this, is what something that we need to pick from the examiner's report. There are a lot of tips actually shared in the examiner's report which we can use when we are answering. So this is your examiner's report, wherein they have bifurcated the entire questions in the exam and they have said what was the requirement, what was answered, what was right, what was wrong. Now, if we look at the first question, these are general guidance. I will come back to them. So, if you look at the first question we all know typically is on consolidation. So, this is the first question which is on consolidation. Now, there are two, three reasons why I have specifically picked up this paper. First, it's the latest paper. Second, it's quite different. Okay, lot of areas tested in this paper are normally not asked in the exam. So there is always going to be a surprise element in the exam, which will come for about 10 to 15 marks. Okay, so you can probably in the exam skip it initially if you're finding it too confusing, and then come back to it later on. So, in the exam, don't waste time. If you're not able to understand anything, please skip it and keep it for the last, and then you move on. Now, if you look at the first question, it is based on foreign exchange of a subsidiary. So, how a subsidiary should be converted into the group company's books of accounts. So, if you look at the first part, so they have just spoken about what is the currency, how the transactions take place, and all of it. Then, if you look at the requirement, it says using Exhibit 1 and in accordance with IS 21, the effect of change in foreign exchange rate, explain why Normstrat co-functional currency is the NY. So here, see, they are not asking you what should be the functional currency. They are telling you NY is the functional currency. You have to justify why is that the currency. There is a difference here. It's not a normal kind of question. Normally they will tell, advise what should be the functional currency, discuss what is the right functional currency. So see, you have to read your question really well. Okay, here the requirement is completely different. They are not asking you to justify if the functional currency should be NY or no, or it should be something else. You have to say why NY is the right currency for the organization. Again, now whenever you have to determine functional currency in the standard, there are set rules. There are three levels of determining your functional currency, and you use those three levels and you explain because it the level 1 is satisfied, that's why NY is the functional currency. Based on level 2, these conditions are satisfied. Based on level 3, these conditions are satisfied, and then you can answer your question. Now that's what the examiner report also talks about. Okay, so it says a good way to present this would be to state each determining factor from the standard, and then explain whether this was the case in the exhibit. So, to just give you an example, there are three factors. First factor is in which currency is the transaction taking place, buying and selling. Second factor, you'll see from which source are they getting their financing. So, which currency is their financing? Third is in which currency are they maintaining their bank account. So you can state these three factors and then say how or which currency is sales and purchase, which currency is their bank account, which currency is financing, and that's why NY is the standard. Now see what they are saying. Repeating information from the exhibit without justifying the conclusion will not give you marks. This is a wrong approach. Please do not repeat what is given in the question as it is. Even when you are doing calculation, guys, if you're just copy pasting any number also from the question, you will not get marks for it. So please remember that. Okay, candidates should be careful in choosing the extent to which they copy paste information from their exhibit. This earns no marks, so you will not get any marks on this. The second requirement was basically you had to recalculate the goodwill because the goodwill that was calculated was incorrect. The exchange currency that they used was wrong. So they have clearly said the spreadsheet requirement continues to be a challenge. Okay. So there are three issues actually that they have discussed in the question. Okay, so the first question was with your goodwill calculation. So goodwill calculation was done using the wrong currency rate. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Yeah. So goodwill at acquisition was incorrectly calculated, so you had to rectify this goodwill. Then impairment was incorrectly calculated. So impairment of goodwill, the rate of exchange needs to be on the date of impairment, but here they've used the average rate. That was wrong. And also retranslation of assets and liabilities was incorrect. So it was completely forex question. Okay. Now what they have said, there was only one error, so explanation should have been brief. Again, write according to the marks. If you see there are three errors and it's for 10 marks, not necessarily it will be 333 marks. Okay, so you have to see, okay, in this there is one problem, so probably this could be for 2 marks and these two could be for 4 marks. So you have to use your little bit judgment. Now how this judgment will come is when you start doing a lot of questions and you just don't pick the question and write it, guys. Pick the question, see the marking scheme, see how much has to be written, and that's how you will learn how to decode your marking schemes. It's always best to write according to the marks, because otherwise you're wasting too much time in the exam. Now, this is something really important which I wanted to highlight, which honestly I find it very disappointing that students don't know how to pass journal entries. Guys, this is your basics, okay? It's like you can't forget ABCD, right? The same way you cannot forget how to write a journal entry. If you don't know how to write a journal entry, there is something wrong with your basics accounting. Please go back and learn those. It's very, very important, because if you are able to pass journal entries, you can solve any kind of questions. Trust me, in the exam, if you're not able to explain, but you even put the right journal entry with the narration, you will still get some marks. I'm not saying all, but some marks you will definitely get, because it's a very good way of explaining what accounting treatment should be done. and you don't have to write too much when you're writing the journal entries. So please get your basics right. Pass journal entries wherever you are confused, because it will also help you understand what adjustment to do. That's also one reason why students find consolidation difficult, because they don't pass journal entries. When there's a problem, please pass the journal entry and then go back and see, okay, goodwill is getting debited, go and increase goodwill. Okay, NCI is getting credited, that means NCI has to increase, because NCI is a liability account. So that's how you have to start solving your questions. Journal entries, very very important. It is also now stated in the examiner's report, guys, please pass the journal entry. Okay, then what they're saying, presenting these journal entries can be used to help you methodologically process the correction in the, see, that's one very good way to solve your spreadsheet problem. Do the working notes, pass the journal, see what is debited, what is credited, and go back and affect those. In the second question, where impairment was inaccurately calculated. Now, what they have stated is, in this question, most of them could identify that yes, impairment is wrongly calculated. So you will debit your impairment loss. But what is the credit side of it? Double entry impact was not given. It will be credited what? It will credit your retained earnings, and it will also credit your NCI's value. So always better to pass journal entries, because both debit and credit leg you will be able to identify. So this is something that they felt was wrong in the answer, and probably there could have been marks to give what is the impact of the impairment. And if you have not done this, you will lose marks. So guys, please focus on debit and credit, both leg of any particular item. Also, they have said whenever there is impairment loss, it needs to be shared between the group and NCI. So, whenever you're doing any PL item calculation, remember both group and NCI are entitled to it. Then they have said how subsidiaries net assets and liabilities had to be incorporated in the holding company's books, is what the third question was. So it says most candidate appreciated that this loss should have been translated at the average rate. Fewer candidates commented that the loss for the year need to be allocated between group and NCI. So this is something you need to keep in mind. Whenever there is a PL item, allocate both between group and NCI. They have said you candidates need further practice at adjusting a consolidated statement of financial position and at working with spreadsheet. It is notable that very few answered applied a journal approach. Please apply the journal approach. It will help you a lot in the consolidation answer. So there was some change in the government regulation. Okay, so the government has put some restriction on your subsidiary, wherein you cannot withdraw funds from the subsidiary, and there was one more restriction here. Just one second, guys. Yes, so you cannot transfer funds to your holding company. Plus, they have restricted on the rights that they can be exercised on the subsidiary. Now, this is again a very theoretical question, because uh, they are just trying to test your knowledge on the concept of control and significant influence. Now, if you know your theory really well, you would be able to answer this fact that saying that this question, basically they are just trying to ask you, when do I call something as my subsidiary, or when do I call something as my associate, based on control and significant influence. If I would have asked you like that, it was a direct question. This is just this part put in a case study, wherein if I control is not going to be there, then should I consider it to be a significant influence and associate, and account it using equity method. Because we know the condition for control is when you exercise right over governance. If that is not going to be there, then control does not exist. So that's what you had to discuss in the part C. This question, however, was not that great, because candidates which identified that key issues relate to the extent of control which Peony could now retain gain marks by first determining what is control in this context and what happens if such control is lost. Now, whenever there is something very direct or something that is coming from the standard, guys, please follow this three-step method. Okay, follow your three-step method to answer any question in SBR. It will really make it easy for you. First is please state the standard. Like in this question, you could have explained what is control. Okay. Second, you explain the requirement. So, wherein you say, in this scenario, does control exist or no? So, you are explaining control conditions are, when you have probably decision making power, when you own more than 50%. So, you could give those conditions and see if those conditions apply here. And third is you can give a conclusion. So conclusion could be that control probably is you no longer have control over your subsidiary even though you own 50% because you don't have the major decision making powers. So it could now be considered to be an associate where a significant influence is existing. State the requirement of the standard, explain the issue, and then give the conclusion. This is how you can also break down your marking scheme. Simply put it in 5 points and you will get marks. So this is with my first consolidation question. Then if you look at the second question, which was again on ethics. Now this question was also slightly twisted. Okay, so they have given a new concept of crowdfunding in ethics. So they have mixed trending issues and they have mixed ethics. So people find it, students might find it very confusing in the exam. Again, guys, go back and try and recollect what is crowdfunding. Probably you've not even read about it. Then what do I do? Read the requirement again. If you read the requirement, you will easily be able to understand using your logic what they have done. So basically, what they have done, they are making drones. Now, to make these drones, they have asked people to give them some money. Using this money, they are developing the drones. And what they have told them, after the drone is developed, I will deliver the drone to you. This is what they have done. So basically, here the money they have collected is nothing but customer advance. You've collected advance from your customer saying you pay me, then I will develop your machinery and then I'll deliver the machinery. It's a common logic. So now using this common logic, okay, so if I've collected advance from customer, it's nothing but it should be accounted as revenue. Simple. So you might have confusion in the exam, but just reread the question, think logically. What are they doing? What if I was in that business and if I did that, then how would I account for this transaction? Always think about it like that. If I were to account for this, what would have I done? Justify it, even if it is not 100% right. If your justification holds good in the exam, you will still get some marks. That's what even your examiner report talks about. This was not the IFRS 15. So there are two things they are asking. Okay, so they have received zero point 0.5 million from one of the directors. So they are asking first, how should this be treated, and second, how should crowdfunding be treated. So whenever money is being received from any directors, it could be, it's like a loan from director. That's what you will understand when you read the exhibit. So any loan, we know financial instrument apply. So they have said very few answer discussed how an amortized cost approach should be applied using APSI's borrowing rate as the applicable cost of borrowing. So basically, the accounting treatment was not correct in this scenario. And if you have also spoken about related party, you were able to gain some extra mark. So again, if you see it's for 10 marks, what should I write for 5 marks? If you're not able to understand, you can probably think of some other points. Okay, if director is there, he's a related party, so there should be an additional disclosure. So it's also important to know your disclosures. You can apply it in the scenario to get that one extra mark. Then crowdfunding, you had to apply your revenue. because it's like an advance collection. So basically, you would say debit your, in this case, debit your bank account. What are you crediting? It's a contract liability, because this is for this is advance collect from customers. So under revenue, any money collected in advance is called as contract liability. Any money which is due from debtor is called as contract asset. So you could have also said debit bank credit customer advances, still correct. Or you could have said it is a credit to contract liability. Then what to do about the manufacturing cost? This should be recognized as inventory or like work in progress. That's what is there. Now what has happened is, basically in this scenario, if I have to give you a brief, they collected money from these different individuals, and let's say they promised that they will give these drones by, let's say, 1st of December, but they were not able to complete this by 1st of December, and they had a lot of manufacturing issues, but still they kept promising their customers that yes, we are going to deliver, and even though these drones did not meet the quality requirement, they still went ahead and delivered it. So that's why they are asking you to discuss the ethical issues. So these were the ethical issues, that there was no honesty, there was no integrity maintained, and you could not stick to what you had promised, basically. Some answers spend a significant amount of time explaining how crowdfunding works and its advantages, which gain no marks. Now, this is also one common problem. You feel, I have written, I will pass because I've written 5 points, 5 mark question. Yes, it is a go ahead. But, guys, what you are doing wrong is you're not writing relevant points. Writing something not asked in the question will not get you marks, it will make you just lose time in the exam. So please stick to the requirement, only answer that. And also do not give vague answers. Like here it says, answers which simply identify issue as unethical without explaining why or how. Don't give vague answers. Your answer should not be loose ended. No one should be able to ask, why have you written this, or why is this the accounting treatment, or how has this figure been arrived. Always remember, your calculations should answer how, your reasons should always answer why. Because the standard says so, because this is the basic accounting concept, because this was the problem, this needs to be corrected. Always write why, and for your calculation, always write how have you arrived at it. See, now what they're saying. Spending a few minutes on an answer plan may help candidate to present a relatively short but well structured answer which scores highly. Remember, it's not about how much you write, it is about how you write it. Moving on, the question three is basically, a company has multiple retail stores, and because so many online stores have been opened, they are facing a lot of competition, and now they are planning to impair their retail stores. So that's what the question is about. Okay, the requirement. Now it says, explain why cash generating unit should have been tested for impairment. See here again, understand, they are not asking you what is cash generating unit. They are not asking you if retail stores are cash generating unit. If you put all that in your answer, you are not going to guess mark. Simply you have to say why impairment should be done. In the exhibit, they are already saying, because they have lot of competition, impairment has to be done. So you explain what is impairment: permanent reduction in the value of asset or reduction in the cash generated from the asset. So here you can say, because we are not able to get enough money from the retail stores, we feel these are not going to give us lot of future economic benefit, so we have to impair them. Simple, so much answer would also hold good. Quicker answers were not always because of lack of technical knowledge, but rather due to candidates answering the question they wanted to answer rather than the one being asked. Why the CGO should have been tested for impairment is what the question is. Weaker candidates seem to concentrate on the word cash generating unit and spent a long time explaining how an impairment loss is calculated and allocated amongst a CGO rather than why should there be an impairment test. So please read the question really really well before you jump onto your answers. Okay. Next one, discuss whether the method used to calculate the value in use and discount rate are acceptable. So they have not done the accurate calculation of value in use. So they have also given how they have calculated the value in use. This is something I think most of the students will be able to get it. Value in use is nothing but present value of future cash flow generated from the asset. That's what value in use is. So that's what should have been used, saying this is how you should calculate, what they have done is wrong, and this is the right way to calculate. Again, they're saying it's a very mixed answers. However, they're saying a large numbers were able to discuss the incorrect use of 10 years budget, okay, and the incorrect inclusion of, so most of them were able to do calculative part well. Also, what I have noticed with lot of students, wherever there's calculation question, they do it well. So this is a kind of calculation question where there was error in the calculation. Most students are able to answer this well. Okay. Moving on to the next requirement. So basically in the next question, what happens is there's a subsidiary which has been held as a discontinued operation for 2 consecutive years. So 2016 and in 2017. But we know whenever we classify something as asset held for sale or discontinued operation, we need to sell it off within 12 months. If not, we need to reclassify this as a normal operation. That's what the question was all about. Again, this was not answered well because you did not focus on the different years. So you had to explain what happened in 2016, what happened in 2017, and should they be classified as discontinued operation individually for both the years, not together. Okay. Presenting well structured and clear answer which address all part of the question is high level skills and something which is expected in SBR. So it is expected that you present a well structured and clear answer. Then the next question was again an extension of this. So what happened is, see, even in 2017, so 2016 also it was discontinued operation, 2017 also it was discontinued operation. Then on 1st April, they received a letter from a buyer who was interested to buy. So it's a subsequent event. Will this subsequent event affect my classification of subsidiary as discontinued operation? Again, it's a mix. So you have to go back and look at your IS 10, wherein you have to identify what is an adjusting and non-adjusting event. And here it would be a non-adjusting event. Reason being, the standard says if the condition exists on the year end, only then we adjust for it. Now there was no communication going on with any customers or with any buyers to buy the subsidiary. So as on the year end, no condition exists, so not an adjusting event. So you had to give reference to both of your standards and answer this question. So this was the weakest area of question. Large part of this seemed because of not reading the dates correctly. So here it's not a tricky question, but because they've extended it for 2 years, question got little confusing. Okay. It says often candidates just stated that the letter was a non-adjusting event without explaining that it was because it did not impact the condition on the in existence at the year end. So always why should be answered. Why is it a non-adjusting event? Okay, remember guys, always my answer should say why. Don't keep it loose-ended. Candidates need to be willing to fully develop their answer by saying why they have chosen the accounting treatment, not just what the treatment is. Probably this is something you should always keep in mind. This is, I think, a very important line here. Why should be answered in all my answer. Okay. Then they have said, to improve performance, candidate need to read the question carefully. Candidate who spend time considering the layout and presentation of the answers generally score higher marks because they address every part of the requirement. Now here what they mean by layout and presentation is break down the question, again break it into marks. So to give you an example, if I were to answer this, okay, 8 marks, 2 points, 4 marks is something that I will get for this. So I need to write 4 points. 1 point is to explain what is a non-adjusting event. Second, how this non-adjusting event is applied in this scenario. Third, how the discontinued classification will work. And fourth, you give a conclusion whether what they have done is right or wrong. So you can split it like that. So when you split it marks wise, you will know how much to write and how to plan your answer. So please follow the marking scheme, understand the marking scheme, and write accordingly. Very important to understand the marking scheme. Moving on to our last question. Now, again, last question was pretty tricky, was little confusing. So here, what they have given is they have given three notes to accounts, okay, and they have asked you what they have done is right or wrong, okay. So basically, this is a mining ore company, and these have ores, and they also have ore reserve. Ore reserve is more like their inventory. So whatever they have extracted, they keep that aside, and ore is more like their asset. So these are the two things that they have. Then they have spoken about different things. One, they have spoken about depreciation. Okay, so how the company is calculating depreciation. So basically, here depreciation is very difficult because how do we depreciate? We depreciate over the useful life of the asset. Here it's difficult to determine the useful life of the asset because I can owe something in 1 year, I can owe the same thing in 2 years also. So a lot of estimates are involved. Then provision, also they have created provision for environmental restoration and decommissioning. So after they have done mining, they need to undo the damage done to the land. So for that they will incur some cost. That cost is something which you can capitalize. So that is again wrongly done over here. Inventory, so valuation of inventory is something that is questionable because here they are saying the value of this metal kind of changes every day. So how do you get the net realizable value, and how do you get the cost of this inventory? So all these three things are wrong. Now here basically you don't have to give too much of conclusion as to what the right accounting treatment should be. You have to more give them what they have done, is that right as per the standard or wrong. So when you don't know what is the right treatment, okay, simply you can stick to saying this is what the standard says, this is what they have done, this is right or this is wrong. So probably it might not give you full marks, but at least you will get, out of 3 you might get 2. This is something you can follow. Now this is the requirement of the this is the scenario. Let's discuss the questions. Now they have asked why disclosures are important to investors. Also remember guys, typically trending topics in current issues are, one is how these informations are important to investors, how your qualitative information is important to investors. Second is sustainability. These two are the most trending topics. So always remember, why should you put something from an investor's point of view? Now, how will you understand this? Okay, so just think logically. If I were to put my money in this business, what would I see? I would see everything. If I have to do a financial analysis, is this company making profit? Are their accounting treatments correct? Is this a sustainable company? Is this a company doing something good? Is so how are the customers reacting to the company? All of those things I would see as an investor. So think as an investor. Uh, all of these things are something that I would need to make a decision. So that's why all these factors should be disclosed, because if these judgments and these estimates change, my figures might change, and that's what the investors need to understand. Okay. Also, guys, whenever you are not able to answer anything based on direct standards, use your conceptual framework. Now, what are conceptual frameworks? Basic concepts like matching concept, going concern, prudence, materiality. Now, what does materiality talk? Materiality says everything that will affect the users of my financial statements should be clearly stated in my financial reporting. So that is what my conceptual framework says. That is why it is important to disclose these judgment and estimates, because if these judgments and estimate change, my numbers in the financial information will change, and investors need to know this before they make a decision. Simple, if you would have written this also, you would have got 3 marks, because here they have said with reference to conceptual framework, give the answer. So conceptual frameworks top concept, materiality you could have put here. That's what is there now. So basically here now they were talking about a business combination that was there. So this was typically my subsidiary. So basically this is not a question related to the requirement, it's a direct question. It says with regard to accounting for business combination, outline 3 examples where management judgment or estimate. So 3 things where estimates are involved in case of business combination. So your fair valuation of assets, fair valuation of NCI, impairment of goodwill. These could probably be areas where I'm applying judgment. So just you could have explained these three and say why judgment or estimates is involved in these scenarios. So it's a direct question. Now here, what is the problem? So it says students gave generic answers with regard to provision and bad debts, but not with regard to business combination. So you should have given specific answers like fair valuation of assets and liabilities of subsidiaries, fair valuation of NCI. Those are very specific to business combination. Again, if you see, it's only 3 marks. So just write fair value of NCI and what judgment is involved in this. That's it. You would have got the marks. Next one. Using Exhibit 1, clearly critically assess the extent to which Maple Co's disclosure of judgment and estimate is useful for investors. So first, you need to write what they have written, and is it relevant? Is this disclosure relevant for the investors or no? Now it says many of these candidates simply copied and pasted parts of the disclosures into response option without much comment on the usefulness to the users. So again, you had to comment, is this information relevant or no? Secondly, it was clear that some candidates didn't understand the requirement to critically assess. Critically assess would mean you critically say, is this technically right or wrong? Is this required in the standard, not required in the standard? All that you have to keep in mind. Strong answers were balanced and commented on what was useful about the disclosure as well as what is wrong or missing. That's what was expected. Now, this is something you can use using heading to structure their answer and provided well balanced comments on the usefulness of disclosures given in 3 areas of financial statements which were asked. Always use headings and subheadings, it will really help to structure your answer well. Plus, as an examiner, it makes it very readable. Your answer becomes very readable. Imagine an examiner will have to at least correct 5 to 6 papers in a day. Reading them, he will get so bored. So if you have structured your answer well, it looks presentable, it gets very easy, and examiner also feels, yeah, yes, the students knows everything. Presentation definitely matters. Okay. Explain how Maple Co should establish an accounting policy where an issue has not been addressed. So they're asking you a very direct question that if IFRS is not present for a specific item, to give you a simple example, there is no IFRS on how to account for cryptos. So what do you do? In such a case, you simply go back to your conceptual framework. So conceptually understand, is this an asset? Asset means something that will give me future economic benefit. Okay, if yes, accounted as an asset. So whenever there is no IFRS, go back to your conceptual framework, and you could have probably given some example in this scenario to answer this well. Okay. Then, using Exhibit 2, discuss whether director's discussion to not recognize a third party loan and preferences. So, here what they have done is they have given a loan to a particular party, and they have also taken money from preference shares. So, basically, I have raised money from preference shares, I have taken that money, and I have given loan to someone else. So, there's one liability and there's one asset. So, what they have done is they have net this off and shown nothing in their financial statement, which is wrong. Netting off like this is not allowed. So that's what you're supposed to answer. Again, three steps you could have followed here. Major thing that they were looking at is asset and liability should not be net off. So that's what the examiner report talks about majorly. So you have to read the question really really well. Even if you did not apply your IFRS concept, you could have simply applied saying asset liabilities cannot be net off if they cannot be settled in a net basis. Here, I will have to pay my liability even if my asset is not going to be recovered. So it's not going to be settled in a net basis. Even if you would have explained that, you would have got marks. Now, generic tips. Okay. Should convert marks into minutes and use this as a guide on deciding how long to spend on answering each requirement. Now, there are two rules which I have developed so that you can answer the question within the time frame. You could either use any one of them, you could also develop yours. Okay, one rule that I follow is 1 mark is equal to 1.5 minute. Now I know you will say it is a 180 minutes paper, I have 100 marks, so it should be 1.8 marks per minute, sorry, 1.8 minutes per mark. But no guys, please do not follow this rule. Reason being, the 30 extra minutes that is there, right, is for reading your question, is when you're getting stuck to solve it, is also to review your answer. And in the exam you will not realize that this 30 minutes can just fly if you're getting stuck somewhere. So please keep this 30 minutes as buffer. Follow the rule, 1 mark 15 minutes. Now again, it's very difficult, you can't keep looking at your watch, it's a waste of time, don't do that. So what do you do? Okay, this question is for 10 marks. I have 15 minutes. I'm starting now. Let's say I'm starting at 10:15. 10:30 is what I should finish. So don't keep looking at your clock. Please keep writing your answer. And probably once you're 80-90% done, then you can see okay how much time. If it is, let's say, 10:40, it's okay guys, you're 80% there, just finish it. Okay, that's why we have that 30 minutes buffer. So now for the next question, you need to be very, very strict with the 1.5 minutes. Another way that you can do is you break it down section wise. So you have your section A, wherein I have consolidation, and then I have my ethics. Then I have my section B, wherein I have question 3 and 4. My suggestion is to start the paper from here. It is not necessary to start the paper from this. Spend 45 minutes here, spend 45 minutes here. Half the paper is done in half your hours, 1.5 hour, you finish 50 marks, which is really, really good. This area is also something that normally students find easier than consolidation. Finish this, then 30 minutes you spend on ethics. Okay, and ethics is something which is a very standard question. Okay, to answer your ethics, you need to again follow three steps. First is to state the ethical issue. What is the problem? Is it a self-interest, self-review? Is it a threat to objectivity, integrity, professional competency, all of that? Second, how does this issue apply to the scenario? So, application of this issue. And third is your safeguard. So you can follow these three steps to answer your ethics question. So whenever you apply this to your ethics, you can expect three, minimum 3 marks if you're one issue, one application, one safeguard. But if there are two, three issues, then you can expect one into, if three issues, then three marks, 9 marks you can expect. So 30 minutes on your ethics, then you have 1 hour, one solid hour left on consolidation. And if you practice well, in 1 hour, you should be able to answer your consolidation question. So you could follow either of this time management methods. Okay. Then it says answers which merely recite knowledge with minimum application to the scenario are unlikely to score well because fewer marks are available for presenting rote learning knowledge at this level. So simply writing what is the standard will also not give you marks. Please remember, this is very, very important. Says candidates are not required to answer question in the order they are presented. You can answer however you are comfortable, but remember, if you're starting question 3 and it has ABC, you need to finish all the ABC and then move to question 4. Don't write 3A then 4B then 3C. Please don't do that in the exam. Okay. So yes, these are the generic tips from the examiner. So this is all about your examiner's report. I hope you found this useful. So guys, thank you for joining in. I hope you found the session useful. You have got some good updates on what is expected in the paper. How do you go about solving it? Some exam tips. Uh, I have tried to give in. Most of the tips that I could think of right now for your SBR paper, and I've also shared my number with you guys. If you require notes, if you require test series, you can definitely reach out to me. I'll be very happy to help you.